Yeah, it starts on a sad note. I don't know whether all of you know, not all of you, but some of you may know Marta Corro. I worked a lot with her. She was here in Leiden for a number of months, a long time ago, and she passed away a few days ago. She was also a keynote speaker at the vocal conference that we had here in Leiden, but more in cyberspace than in Leiden, because that was in the COVID period. And yeah, we worked together. We did a dictionary together, a number of articles together. And I knew that she was very ill, but yeah, it's very sad that for Iraqw studies for sure, although her main work is in the use of Kiswahili in education in Tanzania. That was also the topic of her presentation. So I want to dedicate this talk to her. This was the abstract. The second to the bottom half has too many, and I probably still have forgotten people, because at the moment, Nicolas is helping me, Jeroen is also helping me, and Lightness, who might be coming online, she's in Tanzania. But as Jeroen indicated, I've been working on this for a long time, and many students and colleagues have helped me. So I started the collection. I went to Mbulu, Tanzania to write the grammar. And the first, I was in Mbulu, and in the street, somebody, John Qamlali, came up to me and told me that he was going to be my assistant. I said, okay. And because he had this experience in helping researchers, he had helped archaeologists in Olduvai, so that was excellent. Recommendation to be my research assistant. And from then on, we worked in Mbulu town in a small hotel, in a guest house, for some time. I was waiting to get to another place, and the director of the seminary was helping me to find a place where to stay. But those weeks with John were very nice. We would be working every day, and he insisted at the end of the session, there should be something culture. There could be singing, it could be a story, but he thought that was necessary. So I taped those, and I enjoyed them. And then when I moved to Qamlali, to the village, I found the headmaster of the primary school as my main informant. He was excellent. But there were more people who wanted to work with me. And one of them was John Dafai. And I didn't want to work with him, actually, because I was working with Bless Lilu, who's the most ideal informant that you could imagine, I thought. So, but then John had his neighbor, Hhao, and Hhao is one of the better storytellers in the environment, so in the area. So we arranged that we would tape stories from Hhao and his neighbor Maria Sanka, and then he would help me to write them out. So I was then getting more and more stories, and actually also other kind of verbal art. And in the end, that led to the publication of a little booklet. Yes, what was it? Yes. This one gives the Lupanga Hadithi Nyingine, Maarten, Mous, and Safari Sanka editors. Should be there. Yeah, it is. No? Yeah. And then also for the rest of how it further developed, I came much later again to Hhao, and Hhao was very happy to see me. I had to go there because I was now trying to put all these things onto YouTube. And in 1987, 88, I didn't know about the internet. Nobody did. there was no internet. So I couldn't foresee that there would be an internet. And so I was explained to Taro about the internet. He had no clue, had never used the internet, etc. But he was very happy to give his permission, and also proudly showed me this book that we had kept all that time in the cupboard after under a lock, and well preserved, never read. So yeah, that was also something that got me thinking, how should I continue? So but there are some I think 20 stories that I collected with the help of John Daffy, and then years later I got linked to Basilisa Hhao, and I'm still very much working with her, or maybe the other way around. She is now collecting stories, but also all sorts of other Iraqw verbal art and other cultural things on her own. She has a camera, she has a laptop, she is making these recordings. She puts them onto the laptop, she transcribes them in Elan and translates them into Swahili, and then sends these files to me. And that collection is still growing, and that is quite enormous at the moment. But this is sort of the things that I have, and it's not only me, but many others who have collected stories among Iraqw. The most valuable collection is this one. That is stories collected by Paul Berger in the 1930s. But Roland Kiesling, he did the main job because he used these manuscripts and he typed them out, and he these are no glosses, but he has a file with all the glosses, translated them into English, and edited them. He went to Iraqw area to correct them and get the most correct version. So this is a lot of stories, but also songs and oral history and all things like that. And then Cole Larsen, Paul Berger, a German doctor, he went to Tanzania together with Cole Larsen, Ludwig Cole Larsen, or actually it was Ludwig Cole Larsen who took Paul Berger along. Cole Larsen is a very interesting character. He organized an expedition to East Africa, the beginning of mankind, and he was interested in the ground questions, and he worked among the San, the Hadza, and Iraqw. Well, he left Paul Berger in the Iraqw area and said, now I'll go on, and he went to the Burundi and to Isan, so all sorts of people there in das abflussloses Gebiet, because that was what the Germans really found intriguing about the area. No, it's an area where the water is contained, so the rivers don't go out of it. But I don't know how Cole Larsen collected all his stories, but he did a lot. I mean, I have 3 of these books, but I have, I think, 6 or 7 more, but these are the only ones on the Iraqw. These are all written in German. And I recognize many of the stories, but they're just in German. Of course, there's still a task for me to find out, but there must be more now. He can't have the speakers, the storytellers didn't dictate that to him in German, for sure. There must be at least Swahili, probably Iraqw, and maybe recordings, maybe not. For Paul Berger, I know that the method that he used, which was very, very common at that time, is to get the stories dictated. So somebody would just tell the story slowly and he would write it down. I'm telling you a little bit about this because in the next slide I want to think about the different ways to record stories. So there are different ways. Then Hauge, Magwai, Whiteley. Magwai is interesting. He is an Iraqw, and he went for a study leave to Tokyo, Japan. And one of the things that he published there is do you have it here? It's a book with the ultimate story of Simboya, how it should be, and with some comments and everything. And of course, it is extremely interesting, the fact that he thinks that there is such a thing as the ultimate story, that how it should be. And that is something that you will come back in the literature if you read about storytelling in East Africa, and several people publishing about that. Most non-Tanzanian authors will stress the fact that it's the narrator who tells the story and improvises, and who's the artist and everything. Whereas the Tanzanian authors really stress that it should follow the exact order and how it should be, and if they don't do that, then they make mistakes. So there were clearly very different ideas about what the essence is of storytelling and the essence of the story, which I find interesting. Noordbustad is a Norwegian lady, missionary lady, who worked a lot on Iraqw. They have translated the Old Testament and New Testament. Can you open the door? Somebody wants to, is hesitant to go in? Yes. You have to come. Yeah, of course. I was trying to enforce that. She also published these small booklets with Iraqw and Swahili, and they were available in Mbulu town. Okay, so it should work maybe. If I click on this, yeah. So this is just for my own usage, a list of the stories that are available, published in Iraqw. So we have 229. So that is quite a collection. Does that work with the sharing that they, yeah? Okay. A little bit about the performance, and then I'll talk a little bit about the project, but the performance in itself. These tita, that's the term in Iraqw for the story. They are often in the dictionaries you see something like night story, because it's people say you should tell these stories at night, and it is prohibited to tell them during daytime. Well, most of them I recorded during daytime, and Basilisa is doing the same, and nothing has happened to us. It's not that dangerous to do it during the day, but the idea is you should tell this at night. And so, yes, the collection methods, dictation in the case of Paul Berger, for a lot of the other ones like Whiteley and Camera, I don't know, because they don't say anything about how and where they collected the stories. There must be some recordings. I know for trying to find those by Wada Shoei. Wada Shoei is an anthropologist, a Japanese guy. I mean, when the Japanese couldn't go to Mongolia anymore to study herders, they went to East Africa. So there were a lot of Japanese anthropologists who did work in East Africa, and Wada is one of them. And here he has a book with a lot of stories in Iraqw and in Swahili. His Iraqw wasn't very good. His Swahili was not very good. But we went through all the texts. Basilisa did and corrected them. So I have a correct version now. And he has recordings. I know because I went to the archives of the ethnography museum in Osaka, where they came from, and they have some of his recordings, but not all of them. And I would like to have access to them, and Wada doesn't object, but he's very old, very frail, and it's difficult to get his permission. And the museum really wants me to make use of the story, but they don't know about copyright. So everybody's willing, but there's still all sorts of legal kind of complications to use them. I have recorded my stories that I did with John Qamlali and with John Dafai on a Sony cassette recorder with an external microphone. Sound is good, but it's just only audio. And is that a problem? Well, yeah, maybe now and again, because, and there were children. That is what happens in the story. They don't mention numbers, but they will show the number in their head. So you don't have that on the audio recording. You can write it down quickly. Okay, so. But in general, it would be nice to have the whole setting of the recording on video and to see how that happens, the happening, the performance. Do I have that? Well, I'm not so sure. Nowadays, we do have the recordings by video. And let us look at the beginning of Ama Ermi, the one that Basilisa taped for us. Yeah.
Ang balgera, baraya mo ama ilmi idir. Ama ilmi muguain. Karlo arkawake ama ilmina tlate ay dirdo ko wak. Iwa hardad heto ika hadena kilos mukat ika. Garma.
Yeah, I think this is Josephine Amaka. It was taped by Basilisa some years ago, 6 years ago again. So this is now the beautiful natural performance of a story recorded on video by Iraqw herself from the community. And I'm sure that we all think, well, is this now the real thing? Yes, for the story it is, but for the performance, maybe it isn't. And it's closer to the dictating. And then maybe can we listen to how Tarmo only audio?
Ina idelo tsaraygo bal tamnaki qaytaraya mari pumar qifnada diraqo tuud baqadu agbayi agbaro barqiraga tanursa tsira una wadini qisasini waqatan tan bang diras qadagu ismo qasan safi agwa khoro gutero la tsema daro gaya barate dero ay tamke ala yasa habartos ya salama ya aska hello ya ayya.
Yes, a pity that I don't have the video, isn't it? I mean, this is a different. I mean, it was arranged that I would go there and record it, but it was a party, and how Tarmo he was from the party, and I helped him to organize that, and one of the things that he did during the party is to tell the story. So you'll hear people in the background, and is this a natural environment? Is this the real audience? Yes, but I think when we, and Basilisa's interviewed a number of storytellers in the last weeks, and they say that the most normal way, when do you tell stories? You tell stories in the evening, a bit later than now, but when the work is done and you sit in the house, mother's cooking, and while she's cooking, or grandmother is telling the stories. So do I have those? I have those to some extent on audio, that Maria Sanka told these stories, but then not exactly while cooking, but with some children of her and the neighbors around. And the children don't say a word. They are very, very quiet. maybe they will join in the song, but they really listen attentively, and that is how they should behave. That's also how people think that it should be. So you don't get this lively thing in the most typical kind of storytelling. But maybe we shouldn't worry too much about. Actually, the most spontaneous. Jeroen, can you do this for me? The spontaneous video is wild with Anne. Yeah, we were going to tape the ceremony of name giving in Basilisa's compound, and there was still time, and during this time a story was told. Yes, this beginning. Story of Simboya.
Ako Simboya, daw igdara ay bala. Iba angwa iba kayo. Ay jonya na kar ay joy tibe ka fa ba na foli. Ba nya folaro.
Yes. Yeah. So I have a few interviews now. Maybe we can skip that. And those interviews were part of my attempt to get a little bit into the meta conversation about stories, to talk to the people there. And I tried several times and I wasn't very successful. It's difficult. Of course, my Iraqw is not good enough to have a fluent conversation with people. I'm also an outsider. I thought, but maybe Basilisa does it. She has these interviews with the storytellers. And it's interesting data, but they just answer the questions and they don't elaborate. It's not something people are used to do, to think about, to reflect about how they are telling stories or their language, things like that, and how to do those things. So it's very difficult to get these kind of meta comments that I would like. In this last one, you heard but I think you heard something like that in all of them. The last one, it was me, because I had learned the hard way that really you should do that. I was taping one of the medicine men telling me a story one day, and he stopped after a few minutes and said, I can't tell you a story like this. So he really explained to me I should encourage him with this thing called back channeling in conversation for the linguist, but in a poetry for some other approaches to performance. And so that is really required. Yeah, I'm long time. Yeah. Well, of course, it wasn't my task there to collect stories and songs, etc. I had to write a grammar. So I don't know whether I continue to collect stories for the fun of it or because I thought, no, it's also very useful for my grammar writing. And when I was learning how to do descriptive linguistics, the tradition at that time, at least here, was not that much to collect a lot of texts. It was really to have a very succinct kind of look at the grammars by Mous. I mean, there's not a letter too many in it, and these are very brief, and there's no text. It is really just all based on the dissertation. So this was not the thing that I was expected to do, or that I taught myself to do, but I did find some crucial things in working on those stories. For example, the selector that I noticed soon enough in the citation, that you can use this auxiliary-like element. You have to use it with every sentence with the verb, but they also look very much like the copula that you use in the sentence without the verb. For the A and the E, but I didn't find that for the ta. And then in the story, I found it when Latch is turning into a stone. So when there is a time element into the identification of the two nominal phrases, so that was an aha moment for me. Okay, you can do that. And then, of course, you can also corroborate that with in the conversation about grammar. Mak was also something like, there are these small words that I mean in every language, that we don't know how to translate. Mak is one like that. So I had always just in the dictionary it says somewhat, also the grammar it said somewhat, and what was it say, making statements weaker. And then Amy, one of the students who went to Iraqw area, to that house that you saw, she looked into all these stories and said, okay, let us now see how the mak works in the story. And she found out that, okay, it's actually used every time when you state something, but you indicate to the hearer that, take care, keep this in mind, because later on, you will see some modification of the statement. It's not completely true, but we will explain that later. That is what it does. And Helene, we worked on the demonstratives in the Geesterdukking story. That's really a long time ago. So with a number of students, and I don't know what the class was, but it was a class in which we looked at the story and tried to understand what the different demonstratives actually do in storytelling, because there are 4 of them in Iraqw, and the interesting thing is that 2 and 3 were only used in dialogues, and the number 4 only referentially, but never on the main character. So yes, as Jeroen told me, I want to get towards the book now. In the open text collection of the Language Sciences Press. That's a new initiative where they encourage people to make a book out of those things that are usually in the archive. So it is together with the also with Mandana, with the ELA archive. That they, from the archive point of view, from the Endangered Languages Archive, they have this idea that archive is a bit too much an archive. It's not really, people are not really using it. And yeah, you have also commented on a meeting a few months ago on that whole thing and how can it be better. And one of their ideas is, well, maybe if we just also make books out of these collections, that will help. Maybe it's something we can discuss. Will that help? I'm not so sure, but I see it as a good opportunity to do something with those texts. So it was at that meeting where you also spoke that there was somebody from the main editor of the open text collections made it clear to me that what they really want for this series is texts that are monologues. And so I'm here, yes. My first idea was to have a collection in that series on lifting the curse, because at the moment, most recordings that Basilisa is making is on those ceremonies to lift the curse. I talked about that, but in that meeting with him stressing the monologues, I realized the lifting the curse is not ideal for this collection because it's really dialogue form. And but the tales is really a monologue. Well, of course, there are all these interruptions. That is there's never anything really a monologue when you make a recording. But anyway, I've decided now for the Iraqw tales of Tanzania. And with Basilisa, selected 27 stories, so a lot of the stories that she collected, but to that added those that I collected before in audio only. And last January, we went through all of them carefully. That means that she really looked at every sentence, every word to get what is then the biggest challenge is actually the vowel length to get that correct, things like that. And that's what we did. And in that process, it is now also becoming a text. A text is no longer just a recording, a written recording of the oral, the video, but it has become a text because false starts, wrong words, they are all edited out of it. And I still have to think about that. In a way, I'm happy with that because it's a book. So it is also important that the Iraqw in that book is how it should be. I mean, I'm not going to publish this. It is recorded, but if you write it out the way with all my hesitations and my new starts, it's impossible to read. You don't want to read that. So in a way, I'm very happy about that. And in a way, I'm also think, okay, it's you lose something that some people might want to have. And there, then on the slide, you see I'm working on the glossing, and I'm still far from ready with that. It's a huge job, and I've for a long time also I'm still hesitating, because then what to use? For years I thought I can't use Flex. I have to use one of these stagger programs. American made help me to try to do that. The problem with Flex, there are many with it, but one of them is that it is really geared towards when you start a project. You start with Flex and then you build it up. But I'm not starting. I've worked on this for, I don't know. And I have a whole dictionary, so it won't help me to use the dictionary and to make out of the dictionary kind of a gloss list to get that into Flex and help that Flex. So that is something that I'm still struggling with. I'm also a little bit unhappy with how that goes in the situation of software that we have at our that we have available. But what I want to achieve in the end is in the book to have something that I saw in the story book of the Tunen of Dugas, where you have one page. Oh, a little bit like these books too, nah? One page Iraqw and one page translation. But this is Iraqw and this is Swahili. That's on the back. Where the left page Iraqw will have glosses, and the right page translation should be readable as just a story. Because I hope that the book, and we have to talk about the audience, I have to talk to you about the audience. I hope that the book is also interesting for the non-linguists. And those non-linguists, when they see these glosses, they don't like it. They will throw it away. So in a way, I want to have the glosses, but that's all my analysis is in it. But I also want to cater for the people who are not interested in those details that we linguists are interested in, but just in the story. And then the left and right page, I want to have separate footnotes on the Iraqw level or the story level. But that is on paper. So and that is all. The whole series is geared towards things that are available online. My stories are not yet available online. Not working on that. So it should be that you can click on something or scan your QR code or something, and then you go to the YouTube. And maybe more. Think about that. We'll come to the YouTube. But every story then in the end result should be, there should be an introduction. So we will talk about the story of Amma Ermi in a minute. So before you get the story itself, there's a little bit about the story of Amayemi, like who was telling the story and where and how, but then also a short version of the story and some remarks about the story, like you see the same story among the Isanzu and this motive of people coming out alive of a monster is very common in East Africa and there and there. And when he says, oh, the insects of this country are really funny. That is something that often is said in the story when you are hit by arrows and about to die, and you make a remark like that. So those kind of things, observations, should be preceding the story, and then also. But let me do this first. Okay, the short version of the story is a monster that devours people, animals, everything. She lures the lady of a house, asking her to pick lice. Then she devours her. Amayemi is a lady. Oh, it's a monster. It's an ogre, but she is Ama, she is Miss. So, and also in the whole story, you see female endings on the verbs. That is, it's a lady. So she devours that lady of the house, but her brother then returns from pasture and is made to believe that his sister, which is now Amayemi, or AI. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe AI is Amayemi. Whenever you see AI now, you think, oh, Amayemi, it's the monster. She is sick in bed, and then he slaughters all his cattle for her and makes her food. Doesn't bring her to the bed close because, of course, you don't get to into the bedroom of your sister. Once it's close to the bed, Amayemi gets very fat, enjoys herself singing and dancing. And it's a song to that, and the neighbor hears that singing and warns the boy. Doesn't seem to be your sister. Okay, the boy is convinced and prepares for the battle and shoots through openings in the house at Amayemi and kills her. In our version, this last thing doesn't happen. I think that he kills off, he cuts off the toe, and then everybody comes out.
This is a finger, and there's some white goo comes out of the finger.
Oh yeah, and then it does happen.
Yeah.
Okay, we have different versions whether it does, when it doesn't happen. So that is the story. Abba is Miss Iremi. Don't know what it is, but a lot of these stories you get named and you have no idea what they mean. Well, sometimes you do. Simboya, that was just mentioned minutes ago, is one of the famous stories about Iraqw, and that is Semboja, the famous slave driver of the Usambara Mountains, because his brother is called Namboya. And Se and Na are the Bantu pre-elements, compound elements for father and mother. So it's very clearly a name from somewhere else, and Semboja is famous, but for them, not to them, they don't know that it really is the name of a slave driver in the 19th century in the Usambara Mountains. But they like the name, they use the name in the story. Iremi, people have no idea what that means. It's not a name among the Iraqw, it's just a name in the story. But now I'm reading up on all these stories in East Africa, and I was reading something from the Kikuyu stories, and they have a mythical animal that is called Ilimi. So the name goes around as a monster in stories in East Africa. I don't know whether it's just Kikuyu, probably not. But that's a huge task, of course, to read all the stories of all the languages of all of East Africa. Working on it. Retired anyway now. So also in our collection, we have a number of stories that are close to this one. So from that you get motives that you see in different stories. One of the motives is the thing of devouring, that the monster is devouring, not killing, but people still alive in it. Motive of brother and sister live together. The trick of to cheat somebody by changing the beds, and the person thinks that the wrong person is in the bed. and the throat of the mosquitoes of the world. We talked about this. Okay, so we have this story in different versions. And I have short versions of these different stories, and there's a second slide here after this one. Is there? Yeah, there is. Yeah. What my purpose actually is in presenting these other stories that are similar to it is that's in itself an exercise that is challenging, because you think, okay, this is the same story in some sense, and then you get into something else, so it becomes a whole network of stories that are related. And so it's a bit too simple to say this is the same story. So I have another version of Ermi by John Qamlali in the where the boy who kills Ermi does that outside. Ermi is in the valley, and he builds 9 towers and shoots her from the towers, and then doesn't cut off the finger, but slaughters her in the belly, and then everybody comes out alive. Either it's nothing about Ermi, so why do I put it there? Because it's again the idea that it is a huge bull, certainly male now, but to be killed again by the arrows, and then of course the Aidaria says again, hey, this is a fly from a different world, and people get out of it alive, except for the uncle, and that is the same in all these stories where a monster is slit open and people get out alive. The uncle doesn't want to leave because he got an arrow in his eye, and he wants to be compensated for that, and you have to steal the cattle of the Datoga before I come, or you get me some fat of the python before I come out. And then in this version, they decide they're fed up with their uncle, and then they simply kill the uncle. So that is solved. Some other stories, they don't kill the uncle. The last one here, Wada from Madashoe, Ermi welcomes the male cat. We know that story, but there's no Ermi in our version of the story. But here it is referred to as Ermi. So we have the same story where it's a cannibal instead of Ermi. And then we have one also with a cannibal who's called Ermi, and she sings when she runs away, Margulu Fingidi. And that Fingidi is significant because, as we will hear in a minute, the story of Ermi contains the story of the word Fingidi. So let me so different versions, and you get into stories that maybe not the same, but there are some things that are different, similar, and that's why we will use these parts of stories to compare. Yeah, what is one story? And I illustrate this where I worked it out a bit in the story of Lach. There are actually 3 stories in the stories of Lach. It's also a very long one. It's about half an hour. Most of these stories are 5, 6, 7 minutes. This is half an hour. Lach is very special from birth. He feeds the medicine man who was promised to get Lach by the woman who was pregnant. And that's a theme that's also coming back in several stories. The woman's in the forest. Often she's pregnant and she can't lift the firewood, and then she's helped by the Akogra, the old man of the forest, which is also the nickname for the leopard. So it's a little bit the leopard and a kind of strange medicine man. But for that, the medicine man insists that he will have to eat Lach. But Lach defeats this medicine man because the reason that the medicine man had to help the lady with her pregnancy is that it was her toothed state. There are pregnancies in that country there where it goes over 9 months, it goes over a year, and it doesn't come out. And that was the situation. So he helped her to get the baby out, and then it was his baby. But Lutch is smarter than that. And then he kills off his whole family, first his mother, and then his sister, and then sister's brother. Oh no, the other way around, sister's brother, then the sister. So the baby, it kills them all in ways that he doesn't do it. They do it themselves, but it is actually him who does it. But he manages to do it in a way like when the sister gets so angry that she shouts, that she throws the pestle, he is holding the baby, and the baby is hit by the pestle and dies, and those kind of things. It's not him, but yes, it's him. Then it's a second story of Lutch, where he manages to turns himself into a stone. The sister throws the stone to the other side of the river, and then begins a new life, new journey, new world. And he gets a bird, and the bird is then traded for grains, for feathers, for knives, for chicken, for goat, for the bull, and then for a herd. So in the end, he has a herd. That's a very wrong thing. It's a very common way in stories that you have this repetition of similar events, that you build on it, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's spirals until he has a whole herd of cattle. But then he's followed by the lion walking after him, who kills one cow after the next until there's nothing left. And then, of course, the lion wants to eat him. But he's on top of the tree, and they have this battle. And every animal comes to see what is going on, and they all choose the side of the lion, except for the cat, who then throws all the sand into the eyes of all the animals. And then he's rescued, and that's why the cat is always still with the people, isn't it? These kind of motivations of what it tells you is not something that we get in every story, but now and again they have an explanation line. And sometimes, in the whole school system, that is essential. I mean, you have to have this message. So John insisted in having a final conclusion after every story, and completely different stories have the same conclusion, and you don't see how they're linked. But I mean, he has this idea there has to be something like that. But of this story, this is the one I have, but from how Tarbo, I think, yeah. But then another version starts with B, and then another one has only A, and then the other one doesn't have C, and then we have C as a separate story about the lion and the hare in another collection. So these can be parts of separate stories. Roland Kiesling, my colleague and friend, is working on. We are always working on the same things. Because we are, I don't know, maybe in a former life we must have been twin brothers, and then he has given this overview of things that are in common in a number of stories that seem to be different in the first glance, but are all very similar and have things in common. And he hopes, and I hope with him, to work on this maybe as a group, maybe in the Rift Valley Network, that we develop this kind of inventory of motives in the gebied, the Tanzania and Rift Valley. As I said, I didn't say that yet, but the story of Ama, every story in my book should be preceded by a kind of chapter, a short chapter, because I don't know anything about these things, but a short chapter on one aspect. And for Ama, that would be then the songs. There are songs and stories, and I want to have that this way rather than what other people do, a long introduction and then all the stories, because then I then people will read either of them. But I really want to have them, well, together, so that people are tempted to read all the stories and to also read the general things. So these are the topics that I've come up with at the moment, and then I'm trying to write some short chapters about. But that may change after I find some other things that are more interesting to talk about. So what is the story? In this story, it is Fingidi. What is left for me? Fingidi. Fingidi. That was also in one of the other stories of Ermi. So the songs are can be very stable, even in completely different stories. I have devoured a girl of Fingidi, and a goat was slaughtered for me. Fingidi, I ate the goat Fingidi. This song is really linked to the story, so people will know Ermi, and then some people may know just the song and not the story, but they will know bits of the story, but they will know the song. The song is foremost in their minds. And then when the story is told, then people who are there, they will sing along. They will sing along or maybe they will only join in the Fingidi. Because this structure is something that is apparently very common in these kind of songs, maybe songs in general, but also stories, that you end with something like a refrain that everybody can join into. What is also very common is that you have these words that don't mean anything. Fingidi doesn't mean anything. That's why I kept it Fingidi. Sometimes, not for the Iraqw, but for other traditions, that will be words that look like words from other languages. That is for the Tsonga, they have Zulu words, but then they're changed a bit. And then a remark has been made in the literature that these kind of strange words are because the song is something that not everybody should understand. That it's really something that the people that listen to it in the story itself should be able to understand. So it's a kind of secret communication in the story. People feel that the song needs to be there. Without the song, the story is not complete. John told me the story of Ermi, and he had forgotten actually, this song. And he stops and he thinks and he says, there's a song here, I forgot the song. It's not something that he simply skips. It is something that to him is central. He should have the song here now, but he fails, he can't. So it really is felt like it should be there. For the Iraqw, not every song, not every story has a song, but for the Alaqwa, related to the Iraqw, where I also did some research and collected some stories, there it is that every story starts with a song. And that song is very often in Langi, the Bantu language that they also speak. And that idea that you use a completely different language in your verbal arts is maybe, for me it was strange the first time I saw it, but it seems to be actually quite common that you have this kind of literary code switching that you use, that the hare speaks Swahili in the stories, or things like that. So I want to understand a little bit now about these songs in the stories, because I want to write a short chapter on that. So what is their function, or what is in general, what can we say more analytically about songs and stories? And I am challenged there, because I mean, I'm looking for articles on the function of songs in the fairy tales. And maybe it's me because it's not my field, but I don't find much. I find a little bit. But all of what I found is in the African context, and not folklorists from Estland writing about the function of songs and stories. So that is a challenge that I have. I don't know, is that because I am interested in all sorts of things that actually the real people in the field are not at all interested in? That's a real danger. Or is it because songs as really part of the story is something very common in Africa, not so common in Europe. I don't know. I don't know of these songs in this fairy tales. Yeah, there are some. Ah,
Yeah, but is that original? Was that always part of the story?
I don't know. And we don't, it's difficult for Europe, and we have these collections that are written down, and I hope so, but I mean, there is this encyclopedia, this Bierchenforschungs, 15 books in the library here, not a single entry about songs and stories. So some of the things we can say in song is very often used to get some extra speed to the story. So when the really things are happening, the song of Amaerbi is sung halfway when all the setting is done. We know what is going on, and now we're preparing for the apotheosis that there will be a killing, and the boy is going to start a battle with Amaerbi. And that is introduced by the song, because through the song, the boy now knows that it's not his sister there. Yes,
maybe it has to do with the fact that in Europe, I know in some other places in Europe, but also very much in the Finnish context, a lot of stories are songs themselves.
Mm-hmm. That is one of the things I found in literature that happens in Africa too, that the whole story is a song, and I don't have that in my Iraqw collection. Yeah. So what other kind of functions have these songs? What we see now and again, so it is in the story of the firewood. The father has three daughters, and there's it's dangerous to let them play outside, so they stay inside. And when he comes back from hunting, he sings a song, and only then they should open the cave to let them in. So that is something that you see various times. It's something to recognize, the kind of recognition. So okay, but it also happens quite often, not just for recognition, but simply announcements that you are there. So the other story, the one of all the animals deciding that they need somebody, they need a housewife, and they nominate the cat. And when they bring their food to the cat, then they sing a song, and the cat also sings the same song, and then they get the food. All the food that she doesn't eat, but the hyena will solve that, don't you worry. And the cat as well. So, and that is the Katilande Lande. None of that means anything. And that is in dialogue. So they both sing Katilande Lande, Katilande Lande. And that is something that is also quite often that the song is then answered by the same song or by a song, or that the song itself is a dialogue. Sometimes it's the essential message, it's really crucial information in the song. The story of Simboya, where the bird has to go to the place where the parents live. Long time ago, Simboya left that place, and he is now rich, and he has to tell the parents they should come to him, he's rich. The Simboya the bird sings the song for this crucial information. Another point in that same story, there is back and forth, because Simboya is high up in the tree, earlier passage, and the elephants are passing by in a row, and they once a year they go to another place, and then he is singing to them to ask where the elephant is that limps, because that is the one that he rescued long time ago, and that can help him to get out of the tree. And that is then in a song he sings to the elephants, and the elephants sing back in the same song. Songs then can also be used to get somebody, not only to warn somebody that you're here and that she'll let you in, but also to get somebody to you, so that you can start fighting or playing or whatever. That is, a song is used to get the snake with the 9 heads out of the water. In the Pete story, it's also used by in another version of Ama Ermi to get Ama Ermi towards the boy so that they can start the fight. Something that Mary Bill wrote about, that's the most extensive article that I found about songs and stories. And she makes the remark that the songs tend to go down in melody. I'm not talking about the magic songs because I don't have them. I don't have any introductory songs, but I have a few songs.
Dawero lahu sedang awagalai hanu hau alu. Dawero lahu sedang awagalai hanu hau alu. Dawero lahu sedang awagalai hanu hau alu. Dawero lahu sedang ya itlagalai hanu hau alu.
This is the song to the elephants, and you hear Basilisa journey in the last bit of the line. I don't know why it is so. This is something just in this clip. I have a better version of it. No, I won't. Was that all? Yes, I think that's all that I have to say about the songs. So I'm very far from having a chapter on the songs and their function in the stories, but I hope to get more. And you see my challenges. I don't know where to find inspiration. I still have to look at maybe more songs. I want to talk a little bit about illustrations because I will slowly go into other ways to make these stories known to the world. These are Tinga pictures. These for the story of Ama Ermi. Tinga is very popular art in Tanzania, especially among tourists. There's a group of artists in Dar es Salaam that, and Mr. Tinga is the one who started that, and they make paintings in this style. And looking for illustrations to the stories, I ended up with Edie, who made these beautiful pictures, I think, but Basilisa doesn't like them. So I don't know whether they are suitable or not. In the other book, we have nice pictures that somebody in Tanzania made for me, but I don't know who. So that is a challenge. And these are some other illustrations. So maybe also in the discussion, we can talk a little bit about illustrations and how to deal with them. This is Iris who made this one. And it's a horrible picture, but they like it because this is more how what Ama Ermi looks like, no? So that fits better to the imagination. And then Anouk was helping me. Is she online? No, she was doing maybe that's your. Anouk is helping me also in this project, and what she wants to do is to retell all these stories to an audience like you, but also like your neighbors and your nephews and nieces. So, and then you have to change a few things because maybe you'll see that. But she has nice pictures with it. And I think some of you recognize this style that you can see from the picture that it is helped with artificial intelligence. But it's incredible what they can do. I mean, to me, it's incredible that's what you can get out of it. But when we showed this, Nicolas had some reservations, and I'm sure he will venture them in the discussion. And Idil Samata, one of the students that we had in the project that we had on this, she also made a selection of stories where she retold the story herself with a friend of her who made what ideal things are beautiful pictures to go with these stories. And she also retold the story. Oh no, no, it isn't. This is too small to read, but the girl was scared. That is what is written here. The girl was scared. That's not in the story. You don't do that in the story. You don't say the girl is scared. I mean, you have to infer that yourself. There are no indications like that. Or then there are more of use of those kind of additions that Anouk finds crucial to be there in the story as we are used to reading stories, but that are actually, and it's not only Anouk. I mean, Lightness also had a long, nice conversation with Lightness Isoyeck on these stories. So she is in Iraqw. She's teaching in Karatu International School, and she uses stories also in her teaching. But as soon as you get into the educational realm, then you think, okay, is this story really fit for children? Eating their mother, and I don't know. So and so there are a lot of forces to adopt this. So this is one of the other ways that we're working on to disseminate stories, and then we want them on YouTube. I hope this is the new link, because this is all Nicolas. But we had a Lightness and Jeroen in brackets, because we had a nice conversation about how to present this on YouTube. But Lightness, the Iraqw lady, and with Jeroen, who had with Nicolas just thought about how to present these things in the archive. We know. Yeah.
Ang balgera baraya mo ama ilmi idir. Ama ilmi muguain.
The English can also
Erlo arkawake ama ilmi na tlate ay dirdo okuwak. Iwa hardad heto ika hadena kilos mukat ika. Garma ibarade. Kariwa hardad wadi na o. Dena ina o in bado aliros. Gana bedo o. Ama ilmi riddat. Iri iwit. Barat era.
Yes, Swahili.
Dena rostri bero palang.
This is still a version.
Dena iriti ita maroma ilmi.
Work in progress, but it's very nice already.
Satek. Garawa. Ilmi fay kwah mugdada dakha mu iriwat marini aliros. Garmane dena ros dakha trisam hot. Dena kridduh lo il eros. Garma ridduh.
Als ze trouwen, then if the once they get married, it's fuck. Yes,
سيعاجندي آئل سيعاوا بقاري جن خيرواهو واهو كن أوي فرعاي كن دميجي عاي.
Okay, and then I'm getting towards the end now. So with I'm having high hopes for the YouTube, because I mean in Tanzania, reading, I indicated that the book will be in after behind the locked thing, and TV. There's no Iraqw on TV. There's a lot of TV, so they will watch a lot. But maybe on the phones. Not everybody has a smartphone, but more and more. And then, so one of the things that could be on the phone is this Bloom app. That I had high hopes for that. So it's an app, and then you can have these stories on it, developed by SIL. You type it, and you get the story, and then you get it after something. You get it in Iraqw and Swahili, People were excited when I showed it to them, but to simply download the app, something you have to do only once, but to download the app takes so much airtime that people couldn't manage. So it hasn't worked so far. And already in 1988, I was trying to disseminate them in Leiden. This is the Leiden market, where they had a mandamano, a kind of a kind of way to go, demonstration way to with all kind of mythical animals that some artists in Leiden made on the basis of the stories from the Iraqw. But these are my questions that I hope to get, that you will answer for me, or maybe help me to to think about answers. So these are questions that I deal with. Which audiences do I really want to talk to, and how do I reach them? Should I go? How far should I go into literature and folklore, and is it really worth the effort? Also, how best to link the audio, the video, in a way that the reader who reads the book, because it will be a book in the end, will actually be tempted to listen or to look at it. And how, and that is a question that also Nicolas posed a few times, how to stimulate using these stories and to make something different out of it yourself, as we've been doing several times, several places. What happened to my Stem of Africa? Skipped one. Yeah, no, next one. Yeah, because there is also these stories in Dutch, but then parts of it you can click and you'll hear the Iraqw. Retold, not as just a translation, but a retelling of the story in Dutch. That's something that Sandra Bleker did with these stories. So yeah, to stimulate people. And then in Stem of Africa, we had a kind of competition so that people would write a similar story, children's book, children mainly themselves. But this is something that also Lightness is interested in. She wants to do more storytelling and to get that art back into Tanzanian society. Yeah, we can go to the last slide of the presentation. And yeah, so that is also something that we want to achieve. And then the very last slide is thank you.